Hello, I'm Ray. My pronouns are he and they, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. So, this show draws on the experience and play of the Open Hearth Gaming Community. We're an online RPG gaming group which has a lot of different kinds of games and gaming. This includes story games, OSR, solo, and more. We focus on indie games, inclusivity and support, and use safety tools for all play in the community. It's pretty cool. As usual, we brought on a pair of community members here to discuss their recent gaming and drill down on one RPG they've played, read, or watched. So I'm super happy to have with me today Mint and Casey. Hello, hello. Please introduce yourselves to our dear listeners. Let's please start with Mint.
Hello, I'm Mint, also known as Mint Rabbit. I'm probably someone that you've seen around if you have heard of the blog. There's a TTRPG for that. I think I've best described myself the TTRPG librarian. I curate collections of games under different themes for people who are looking for very specific things.
I love the blog. It's really amazing what Mint comes up with for the most specific questions. There are these beautiful collections. It's really great stuff that Mint is doing for the community. And Casey.
Hey, Casey. I use he, him pronouns, and I don't do much of anything besides run games, play games. Good to be here.
You were super helpful with Tomb Raider playtesting and Black Buy-in, so I super appreciate it. We're going to go around and have everyone tell us about their recent gaming and how it's gone, what you've played, or what's coming up, and then talk with us about a particular game, one specific game that you're excited to talk about today on the podcast. Mint, what have you played recently?
Since the beginning of the year, I tried out Liminal Horror for the first time. I got back to playing Changeling Lost because I can't be kept away from it for longer than a year. I got to playtest Neon City Outlaws with my friend Sean. I've started running a small campaign of Bump in the Dark.
Ooh.
I recently tried my hand at Slug Blaster, but most of my time has been taken up with playtesting Protect the Child, which is my game.
To spoil it a little bit, I'm really excited to hear about Protect the Child.
I'm very happy to be able to talk about it. It is my baby. So, for people who have not heard about it before, it is a Forged in the Dark game about monster babysitters. They are responsible for taking care of a superhuman kid. The way that I usually describe it in the pitch is that you are creatures of fur, scales, and fangs. You have claws that can rend flesh, faces that can crack mirrors, howls that can cause ears to bleed, and your charge wants a blankie. I've been playtesting this game for, I want to say, about 8 months, publicly, and I've gone through 4 iterations at this point. I'm on iteration number 4. I think we're at like maybe 10 regular playtesters and then a couple of one-off playtesters. But just getting to sit down with like the same group of people every few weeks and run through a game and having them be so patient with me having to explain the rules a third or fourth time because I've changed so many things. But also just getting to see people get really attached to the characters that they've been given or elements of the game that have been introduced. It makes me feel more confident that I do have something good going on here, that I do have something interesting to say with my game.
I really heavily encourage people to get a game into playtesting as soon as possible because it just really helps to see people enjoying the game and playing the game. It helps a lot with your confidence as a designer to be like, people are having fun. It's a good time. So this is a good game. And it's a very fun game. I got to be in a one-shot for Protect the Child, and it was some of the best fun I've had for sure.
Yay! I think the other thing that really surprised me is I very purposely have Protect the Child be genre-less. It's supposed to be setting neutral because you're supposed to build the setting as a group. And I still think that the world building part of it is very, very strong part of it. But because when I was playtesting, I knew that I wasn't going to be consistently available. I was going to have random days that I was going to be able to run stuff, and my time zone is kind of weird, so it doesn't always match well with people who are living on the West Coast or who are living in Europe or farther abroad. So I wrote pre-generated characters for 3 or 4 different settings, and I said, I'm going to run with the pre-generated characters, and you can just pick one up even if somebody else has played it before, and that'll allow me to test out what a campaign would look like, even if I can't get the same players every week. And yet, I have a handful of players who set aside time when they find out that Lily's Angels is going to run, or when they find out that Digital Glitch is going to run, because they're like, no, I need to come back and I need to see what happens to Bread, or I need to figure out what's going to happen with Ben. And it's really, really cool to see people get really attached to a character that they did not make themselves.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about the different
The setting play kits?
play kits. There you go. I'd love to hear about them.
I wanted to be able to showcase the range of what Protect the Child can do. So the very first setting that I did was Monsters of the 1700s. It's very much fantasy with a little bit of technology. There's cannons and clocks and ships and things like that. And then all of the characters are either fairy folk or animal folk of some kind. And they're helping a kid who's been cursed with invisibility find their parents. Then I wrote one that was very much inspired by Ice Age and Pixar movies, where you're all dogs in a park and you're trying to help this toddler figure out where his parents went. And then after that, I wrote Lily's Angels, which is definitely kind of wearing everything about Protect the Child on its sleeve. You are all modern day monsters who are helping a trans teenager basically stay away from the police and find a new family because her family is not accepting. So those are the 3 that I started with. Digital Glitch kind of happened after the fact because I got invited into the Kiwi Game Jam, which was all about celebrating games made by designers from Aotearoa. I hope I said that right. I was really interested in The Sprawl by Hamish Cameron, so I wrote Digital Glitch, pulling a lot of inspiration from The Sprawl. And then I also felt like cyberpunk is a great chance to talk about disability. So I wrote a lot of the characters for that specific game, thinking about how each of those characters' lives are impacted by the fact that they don't really own their bodies completely. The kid in that one is also someone whose superpower is a disability. It goes both ways.
You say babysit, right? But I feel like it's a little more than that. You're really protecting the child. It's the name of the game. But
yeah, it's a parenting game.
Right, it's a parenting game. You're helping the child grow, right? There are cool mechanics about that. So what has that been like?
I was hoping to be able to get into some really emotional moments, and yet I am still astounded when we get the moments that we do get. Especially with some of the long-term groups, we're having conversations with the child about body image. We're having conversations with the kid about how to deal with fear. We're having moments where the monsters are realizing, look, we've accidentally taught the kid that stealing is okay. Or they might teach the kid you don't need everybody's approval, but the lesson that the kid takes away from it is that I only need one boy to like me. And then watching the players realize, oh, yeah, no, this is totally what a kid would take away from this kind of interaction is so rewarding and so fun. Also, it's really cool to see people being willing to have a lot of these kind of complex conversations, even if the only arena that they know each other in is playing the game. And it's actually fostered some really cool conversations with some of my players outside of game, just being little touch points to be like, oh, hey, like this actually was really meaningful for me, which was really, really cool.
It's so funny. Shortly after I played Protect the Child, I started seeing a lot more material about children liberation and similar things like the concept of age abolition. And it's called family abolition, but it's really more about expanding the community so that more people can be present to take care of children and to know that we should also take care of people even if they are no longer children and similar ideas.
family abolition, children's rights is so integral to part of the design process. One of the first hurdles that I had was that at the beginning of playtesting, the kid just felt like a football that you were carrying from point A to point B, and they can't be that. It's fundamental to the game that the kid be at the center of everything. And so one of the first changes I did is I said, oh, no, the kid has to be the source of a lot of the group's problems. And if the group tries to put the kid in a corner, the kid has to step outside of that corner. I've had players who say, yeah, I'm going to see if I can sneak away from the kid just to go off and do this one thing. And I'm like, the kid can turn invisible. They're going to follow you. Or they try and come up with a plan that'll conveniently get some enemy faction off the kid's back. And I'm going to be like, no, the kid's going to overhear you, completely misunderstand, and is going to put themselves into harm's way because they just don't understand what you're trying to do. And one of the more recent changes that I've done, it just gives the GM a piece of currency to spend in order to make certain things happen. And so one of the things that GM can do is say, I'm going to spend my currency now to have the kid do something at the worst possible time. The agency of kids is a super big thing. Some of the things that were really fueling me when I was writing the rules for this isn't just in Canada, but this is around the world. Trans kids have kind of been the political football. There's a lot of really good protections for trans kids in most of my country, but there is also a concerted effort to take away the rights of trans kids in terms of social transition or protecting kids who maybe come out and ask to use a different set of pronouns at school. And there's a couple of political parties that do want to erode those powers. That was the forefront of my brain when I was thinking about this. And then on the flip side of that, I was also thinking about Indigenous kids, because in Canada, the Indigenous population, it's only 5% of the total population, and yet Indigenous kids are somewhat in the ballpark of 50% of foster kids. It's just an extenuation of how the residential school system in Canada completely tore apart Indigenous families. And there's some level of Canadian society that doesn't consider Indigenous people to be fit parents. It's really interesting to me, in a very sad way, how a lot of colonial parents are considered to have plenty of rights in terms of what they can or cannot allow their kids to do, but Indigenous parents do not have those same rights. It's exceptionally sad because I think that there's definitely a strong thread of seeing children as a treasure in a lot of different Indigenous cultures. And separating that from Indigenous people's rights to parent it means a lot to me.
Even though I only played one session so far, I'm so excited to play a full series. I can really tell the amount of care and thought that you've put into the game and the mechanics and the natural play that comes from it. And I'm excited to have more games that really speak to something so community focused, something so emotionally important. Where can people go and find the game if they want to play it?
It's on itch.io. If you search Protect the Child, it should show up. Pretty much everything is in a Google Doc, but you can download a PDF if that is a better way to read it for you. There's also a learner's guide, so if you've never played Forge in the Dark before, or you are not used to being on the GM side, I tried to do a pretty detailed step-by-step introduction to how to get your game set up and how to get people used to all of the different mechanics. And there's also a link on the itch.io page for the Discord server, so if you're interested in playtesting, that link should take you there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mint. Next, I'd love to hear from Casey. How's your recent gaming been?
I haven't been playing as much as I would like, so I also am going to go all the way back to the beginning of the year. At the Open Hearth on the calendar, I played in games of, I'm sorry, did you say Street Magic, Slug Blaster, Cryptid Creeks, and some Descended from the Queen games. Well, it was one of the ill-fated series. I tried to run kind of like a round robin series where like every week a different person would run a Descended from the Queen game. We only got through 2 of those, but it was fun. And then I played in Ancients, which was part of Dominic's playing through the bookshelf / solo together series that he's kind of put together. That was a lot of fun. And then off calendar, another ill-fated series, Ballot Buy-In, that I ran back in January, but still tons of fun. And Deathmatch Island, Tangled Blessings, and Last Train to Bremen. And then my home game finished up a campaign of Fabula Ultima. And then we started playtesting a Blades in the Dark hack my friend is working on that is like a zombie apocalypse horror survival kind of game with some of the base building aspects of Mountain Home stapled into it. So that's been a lot of fun. And then I have an ongoing game of Wander Home that's always awesome. And obviously, Yazebas Bed and Breakfast, which is what I'm going to talk about today.
For our listeners, Casey, I'd love if you could talk about this amazing game. I know you collected the stats at one point of Yazebas, right?
I kept pretty good stats for 2024. I haven't been so with it for 2025. We just recently had a couple of chat sessions that actually came out of the mechanics of the game. There's a spare track in the game that says something like, we have a pizza party, who can be there and what happened? Leaving it open whether or not that's an in-character universe thing or meta players level thing. So we set it at the player level and had a couple of pizza party chats. In those pizza party chat sessions, we kind of went over a lot of the stats. It was fun to look back at everyone's first session and how many sessions people have been in and that kind of thing. The general pitch for Yazebas is, once upon a time, the world was cruel, and there was a witch who knew it well, and so she sold her heart to build a house in the woods where the world could never find her. At first, she would let no one into her fortress, but in the long march of days, a strange thing happened. In her own cold and spiteful way, the witch made a friend, and then another, and then several more, until her house was teeming with colorful faces and complicated lives. The house would come to be known as Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, and it would last for a very long time. So yeah, we have a cast of characters, Yazeba herself, the witch and proprietor of the bed and breakfast, and then a regular cast of characters, the residents. There's Sal, the night porter, and Parrish, the chef, who's a frog, but was a knight at one point, and Gertrude, the runaway teenager, Hey Kid, the devil child, Amelie, the robotic housemaid, and the Moon Prince escaped from the moon. It's like a slice of life game about the goings on of the bed and breakfast. It's played over chapters, and so all the scenarios are pre-written, all the characters are pre-written. Like Rae said, we're getting back to pre-gens, which is something I do want to talk about. Mm-hmm. It's just about those characters and how they get by planting a garden or doing the spring cleaning or catching Yazeba's escaped shadow and that sort of thing. And it has this brilliant feeling of a lost media franchise. Like, I read a couple of comic books and you saw a couple episodes of the TV show. Mint saw this weird Canadian version where they used the same animation but dubbed over different words. So we're all culturally aware of it in different ways. And we're like bringing that knowledge to the game, but the actual media franchise has been deleted from the world. So we only have this relic, and we're all bringing our own memories and baggage into the game about these characters, which is a really interesting feeling to cultivate and puts everybody on a level playing field with where they can take things.
I wanted to quickly interrupt and let our listeners know that Mint typed the Goncharov of TTRPGs in the chat, which is accurate, very smart. Man, Possibly Games is so good at this like meta level of play. Anyway.
So I think part of the brilliance of pre-gens, or when they're done well, is writing the detail to give you the foundation, but then leaving the space for your invention. Like I say, with the chapters for Yazebas, there's an opening fiction that sets the stage. Like, it's raining outside. Hey Kid wants to go outside and play. They have too much energy. It's raining. They can't go outside. You have to babysit them or watch them inside, tire them out, get rid of all their energy. And so the opening fiction describes that scenario of Hey Kid being like, I want to go outside, and Gertrude being like, well, let's play inside. And so it gives you this awesome scenario only up to the point of tension or conflict or action, and then it hands it over to the players. And then you get to decide what happens in that chapter based on the mechanics and the ending condition of the chapter. And so it has these set start and end points, and whatever you do in the middle is what happens, but it also then kind of gets folded into the larger continuity. And you could play that chapter again with different people or even the same people, and it would just build on that continuity. And it's really interesting how the pre-gens start to evolve and change. They're always pre-gens because they always start with the character sheet and all the listed information about them. You always have the ability to add to the character sheet, make notes on it, draw pictures, do whatever you want to add to it. But there's mechanical parts like the characters' journeys, how they progress through life and reach milestones that you as a player get to interact with and decide how they go. So then when you do that and then the next person comes along, the original pre-generated character is still there, but it's been added to by whoever was before you. You're always free to take whatever you want off of the page. You don't have to incorporate everything that's on the character sheet. Some of them are huge at this point in our playthrough, pages and pages of notes. It's always kind of just open to what you want to interpret. The base level, like, hey, kid is the demon child, Gertrude's the moody teenager, Sal's the slacker. You can always play into those. And then there's way more specifics on the sheet that have been introduced from the game or from just other players. And it's so cool to see the way that people interpret those and change those. I remember Parrish, who is the ex-knight, now frog, chef of the bed and breakfast, has a journey that's him going through a midlife crisis. You're looking for the fictional positioning in a chapter to do things, or you can use another bit of the mechanics to just cross something off of the list. It's like acquire a frog-sized motorcycle, automobile, or aeroplane, and then the next thing you have to do is wreck it, and then procure a bouquet of roses and ask someone out on a date and regret it. Acquire a spiffy suit perfect for a frog about town and have a meltdown worrying about whether it makes me look weird. And I remember one player came in, played Parrish, and then spent the resources to cross off the line and have a meltdown worrying whether it makes me look weird because he wanted Parrish to not feel bad about it. So by crossing it off the list and not engaging with it, it kind of removed it from the table. And so then when Parrish could get his outfit, he could be confident and styling. And that just stands out to me as an interesting way to come at that.
I got to play one session and it was so cool. There's so many characters, right? Because you unlock characters and you've been playing for such a long time that you almost unlocked everything by that point. But there were a lot of characters that had seen a lot of play. I remember towards the end, there was a point where Gertrude had been far along enough that we could unlock a particular item, which was hormones if she wanted to take them. And it really felt amazing to witness these characters being taken care of by all these other players and to be there to witness Gertrude. I'm getting a little emotional because I'm trans and it was very hard for me to get on hormones here in the Philippines. But it was really an emotional moment to see that happen, knowing that all these other players had built up towards that point. It was really, really sweet. That's one of the magical things about Yazebas is all the care that's built into it, the care in the story, but also the care that the players have for each other and the game as well. So it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. People really, really care. It's so awesome to see. The Moon Prince and Gertrude are at the top of that list, I think, of characters that get played a lot, characters that get played by different people quite often, but are consistently really taken care of. We're really trying to help them be their best selves. And I love those advancement mechanics, like you mentioned, the one for Gertrude, because it has no mechanical effect. Like you say, it's a thing we want to do for Gertrude. I love that it says Yazeba gets Gertrude hormones if she wants. It's a decision that Gertrude has made, but then it also tells us something about Yazeba as well.
Mm-hmm.
Stepping into like that older queer mentor role and also having the ability to get shit done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yazeba is capable.
Yeah, it's such an important part of queer elders to help the younger generations because I mean the dream is that each fight, each generation is a little easier, is hopefully the goal, but it's really something when your elders can take care of you, make the fight a little bit easier. I love how queer Yazebas is. It's so great.
It also doesn't necessarily shy away from any of that stuff either.
Mm-hmm.
It's not super obvious or super blatant. Yazeba had a hostel before she had the bed and breakfast. And it's not overtly super blatant about what happened, but it seems throughout the book it feels like there was tragedy there. And then there's a late chapter called The Witch's Old Hostel for Gertrude, Amelie, and Never Yazeba. And it's this like moment where Gertrude finds out about it and is like, oh, I want to go there and I want to see that. And Amelie goes with, but Yazeba finds out and is like, okay, you can go, but that's not for me. In this very cold way, she's like, I think I forgot my scarf there. Find that for me. Then Gertrude and Amelie go, and the chapter is all about slowly discovering what happened there and the horrors of that place being destroyed. And that's really powerful. I get why it's at the back end of the game. It's interesting how it builds towards those things. It on ramps you with the more casual planting a garden, going shopping episodes. And then by the end, taking these huge emotional swings or backfilling in some of the lore that you might not have expressly gotten throughout all of the book. Because that's another thing that the book does that's really interesting is it's not just rules and chapters and characters and all of that stuff. There's these bits of fiction that break up the book that give you insights. Like the story is Hey Kid was left on the doorstep of the bed and breakfast as a baby, and now they're there. The real story in the book is like they were summoned from hell to be a harbinger of doom by some wizard, and Yazeba defeated them and took the kid and is trying to raise them right. But you don't get that in anything other than that little bit of fiction. And so there's Sal's arrival, and there's all these little bits of insight into the characters that you might not otherwise get, or that kind of point you at certain relationships or dynamics. I think one of my favorite little bits of fiction is just like this tiny thing where there's a room that says, keep out, under no circumstances should you enter Yazeba. And Gertrude's like, well, we should go and see what's in there. And Amelie's like, we can't. And Gertrude's like, I'm not under any circumstances. Are you? Amelie's, I know what you're doing, but technically I am not experiencing circumstances. And that room is probably pretty dirty. And so then they go into the room. And I think it says, what was behind the door was not important to the story, but the looking itself was significant. I wouldn't necessarily assume that Gertrude and Amelie would develop this sort of friendship, but this 4 paragraphs of fiction show us that, which lead you in play or point you at stuff, which is cool for sure.
I've only read about Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. It's not something I've had a privilege of being able to read or play, but I really love the idea that it starts off lighthearted and then it kind of, I don't know if gut punch is the right word, but it sounds like it kind of gut punches you once you get deep enough into the game. Something a bit more heavy.
Yeah. There's a lot of that sprinkled throughout as well. There's always room for conflict, and there's always room for more intense conversations. Some of the chapters are kind of geared that way too, where it's about answering questions about who you are and that kind of thing. It definitely has a progression to it. I don't want to call the early ones lighthearted, I think is what I'm trying to avoid. Although they might be. I know that cozy, sweet vibe is something that bothers the designers a bit, I think.
Is it more accurate to say that, not that it starts out cozy, but the story gets richer and deeper the more time you spend with it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's everything that's presented in the book. And even if you don't read the book and you just are getting the chapter fiction when we play, if you came to a game, you just read the chapter fiction and be like, okay, this is what it is for today. So there's all of that. But then, like you say, there's everything that you add to it and you build on it. People come back and will look at characters, like even if they aren't going to play them, like, oh, I want to see what happened to Alex, or what's up with this or that. That also builds the richness. The longer you play, like you say, you build more and more into it from your perspective or from your experience.
At the beginning, you were talking about how it kind of makes it feel like it's a lost franchise. Maybe one of the reasons it feels like that is because the characters are already made. It allows you to develop fan fiction, basically. You're developing your own fan culture around the game whenever you play it.
Yes, absolutely. I think Andrea called it a big collective fan fiction project, which it definitely is. We're all fans of these characters. And the way it builds a community too with players. Early on, a couple months into running it, I had someone come to a game and she played Hey Kid and I played Parish. And then there was a couple months where I didn't play with that person. And then she came back and was planning on playing a different character. They were like, oh, I don't want to play Hey Kid. I played them last time, et cetera, et cetera. But then I was like, oh, they've advanced in their journey, and so has Parrish, and so I'm going to play Parrish. And so she was like, ooh, well then I'll play Hey Kid and see a different version of Hey Kid and how this older version of Hey Kid interacts with this older version of Parrish. And I remember after that session, I texted a friend of mine in all caps, the players are the guests. I had this moment where it was like, oh, I hadn't seen this player, and they're coming back into this role as a character, and that was like a mind shift for me too. Community that it builds with the players is also something that's super special.
This is somewhat resonant to my experience with playtesting Protect the Child, especially with my Lily's Angels crew, mostly because that's just been the one that we've been playing the longest. But I will post a small recap of what happened in that session, and it's usually 1 or 2 sentences. Very often I'll have a player who wasn't able to make it that week say like, no, oh my goodness, what do you mean this happened? I need to know. You did what with the kid? And things like that. How about you, Rae? What have you been playing this year so far?
Man, I love how you're such a natural co-host. It's so good. I feel very taken care of. In terms of recent gaming, I still miss my summer months of playing 8 games a week on the Open Hearth, but that hasn't been the case. Still, I continue to playtest Tomb Raider. I know it's like an official huge IP, but it's an indie game in my heart. And that's been super fun. And I've also been playtesting slash designing a game called Dog Days. The pitch is the early Americana century. It's this mismatch of Prohibition era, Art Deco, noir, all in one game. And you're furries. And because Rae wrote the game, it's also about furries who have lost access to their magic, but maybe the magic is coming back. We'll see. And I also got to play Blister City by Keegan Exe, which is super fun, a great cyberpunk game. Keegan has such a great perspective on cyberpunk, so I'm really enjoying Blister City. I can't wait to play more. And I'm still thinking about the Die game that Lowell ran for us earlier this year. It was super emotional. It was really great. Also, Protect the Child. I got to play that. That had a huge impact, which I got to talk about earlier. But I did jump onto a playtest of Blades 68 on the Open Hearth that Jesse ran. In fact, our last session was today. So we got to have 4 sessions. It was really cool. And Blades 68 is the game I want to talk about today. The short pitch of Blade 68 is working in consultation with John Harper. Designer Tim Denny advances the timeline and the technology of Duskwall 100 years into the future with Blade 68. It's an official supplement with some really sexy new design tech, very exciting new setting stuff. It's really fun to see everything updated because 100 years is like a huge shift, and it's really fun to see how things have changed. Blade 68 is a game that is an open playtest at the time of this recording. I'm not sure how much longer it'll be in open playtest, but the designer, Tim Denny, his work is very beloved. And from what I've seen in Blade 68, it looks super great. I'm really excited to see where the game is headed. There's like a lot of great design stuff, slight tweaking, streamlining additions, but it's still very much Blades in the dark. Across the shattered isles, it is the age of consensus. Superstition has been replaced by the superior values of science, conformity, and consumerism. It is a world at peace, or that's what they try to tell you. Progress is here, but only for some. War may be over, but the shadowy game of espionage has never been more heated. Discontent bubbles under the surface and threatens to erupt at any time in any place. They've tried to tell you that the future has arrived and everything is fine now, but it's not the time to make a fuss. But you know better. You're a scoundrel, a chancer, a troublemaker. You know the streets and you're not afraid of danger. The moment is now. Everything you've dreamed of is within reach. So immediately, the expansion from scoundrel to something else is so exciting. It's really cool. When we were making characters, it was super fun exploring that possibility. So we did go towards a more rebellious, progressive group, which was really fun. So I want to encourage more people to talk about it in future episodes of the podcast. So I'm only going to focus on one thing today, which is the Time Traveler Playbook, which I got to play. So number one, the exciting thing is there are two Time Traveler playbooks. So you can either play a Time Traveler from the past or a Time Traveler from the future. It's mostly the same, but there are some slight key narrative differences, some slight mechanical differences, and it's so good. I, of course, had to play the Time Traveler from the past because what's really cool is every time you advance, you can choose an ability from any of the old Blades in the Dark playbooks because this is a supplement, right? It's meant to attach to Blades in the Dark so it all like coheres. It's really fun being able to look at the original playbooks and then using them. A couple of things I want to talk about that's really cool about the Time Traveler playbook, which is it has a great alternative to trauma. Instead of stress, you have instability, which I know sounds like stress, but it's more like you are not stable in this time. Every once in a while, you can't cohere and stay. Instead of trauma, you collect temporal glitches. It's really exciting framing. I got to play the 4 sessions. I picked up the temporal glitch of body phasing. We made up one called Doppelganger, which is really cool. What I really love about the Time Traveler is that it is such a delightfully limited experience. The playbook cannot be played for long. With the Time Traveler from the past, you start with the ability of Haunted by the Past. You are a visitor from the past here on an important mission. Your mind starts muddled from the time travel process. Every time you fill your playbook XP, you gain clarity. Choose a new time traveler trait below and an ability from one of the Blades in the Dark playbooks and take another temporal glitch and note down a new detail of your mission. You burn brightly but briefly. Make the most of your time here. It feels great to get that advancement because you get 2 abilities instead of 1, but you also get this temporal glitch and you also learn more about your mission. So it's you play to find out. You don't have an idea of what you're here, just that the mission was important. And the thing is, if you fill up all your temporal glitches, so that just means 4 advancements. Once you hit 4 temporal glitches, instead of trauma out, you disappear from this time period entirely after the next score. Make it count. I'm already 2 out of 4 from a 4-session series. It's very evocative of the vibes. Like time traveler characters usually aren't around for long. Like they just make a huge impact and they leave. I love how sexy the design is in terms of that. Forge in the Dark is so much fun though, because modularity in its design creates so many different game experiences. For example, when I played the Time Traveler from the past, I got to choose what the mission is. Either it is something went wrong and you have to find a solution in the future and then take it back into the past, or you have to save the present from a past mistake. So something happened in the past that will only affect the future now in 1968. I realize now as I'm talking to you that in case you temporal glitch and are thrown out of the timeline, you might not even learn your full mission if you reach instability too often. It really encourages you to play to find out. You don't have to stress out about knowing the mission and knowing what's going to happen. The usual pitfalls of time travel play in TTRPGs. That's super exciting. It was really fun trying to think of a character from the original Duskfall and how he's handling being in 1968, how he's slightly anachronistic, how he can't remember everything, so he's holding on so tightly to the mission.
I don't know if this is accurate, but I remember reading the playbooks for Apocalypse World and seeing the quarantine and thinking like, oh, this completely changes the game. If you put this character in the game, it adds this dimension to the game that just otherwise would not be there. And when you talk about the time travel, it feels like it fundamentally changes the game that you're playing.
I love it when playbooks do that. Not to geek out about another game, but I love how the Veil does that. Every time you choose a playbook, it shifts the world dramatically, where something that wasn't super important before, that is just sort of possibly part of the setting, maybe not even, suddenly becomes front and center. I love playbooks that do that, where they like shift the fiction so dramatically and bring a lot of inspiration with it. I don't think I got to play The Quarantine. I have to look at that playbook again.
It's the one where you were in a bunker, just in stasis, and you were woken up
Ooh,
after the apocalypse happened.
right.
It feels a little bit like main character from Fallout.
Oh, that's so cool.
There's a whole bunch of mystery around why you were in the bunker, why you woke up now, why you're the only one left. It presents you with all of these questions that the player has to answer while they play. And it sounds like with the time traveler, it's making the past a part of the present, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm feeling that same kind of connection in a game where maybe the past isn't nearly as important
Mhm.
unless you play that character. It also makes me think about how in, I think it's Legacy, Life Beyond the Ruins, if there's a family that deals with Titans, and Titans do not need to exist in your version of the game unless you have that family.
Yeah, that's so true. It's such a dramatic addition to the game. That feels very true. As we were playing, I kept talking about the past and the bits and pieces that I could remember. Because I could remember the past pretty well, just not the mission. But even then, I couldn't remember a lot. But one of the sticking points in Blade 68 is superstition is over. It's a time of science. The ghost field, which is such a huge part of Blades in the Dark, is now called the Resonance Echo Field instead because ghosts aren't real anymore, even though obviously they're still around. But science called it something else. They're echoes now instead. And so it's really cool because my character was very ritualistic, was very devout, and the other characters are like, but we are people of science. There was this cool merging of the two. So it definitely introduced a lot of cool stuff into the game. When it fully comes out, I will definitely be playing this game again. I'd love to have a longer campaign because so many of the playbooks, like the Time Traveler, the Hull, oh, you can like regain your memory slowly. We got so excited when our PC Hull got to reclaim one of his memories. That was super cool.
I know that deep cuts is also being looked at a lot right now.
Hmm.
Do those two things interact with each other?
They do. It's very OSR modular too, right? But basically, Blade 68, Deep Cuts, Blades in the Dark, they all interact with each other because you need blades in the dark.
One of the things I absolutely love about Forge in the Dark, and it's why I'm designing Forge in the Dark, it's better than a car because you don't have to put all of the pieces back in. You can put them in different spots. You can put in new pieces.
Yeah.
I guess it's like a Lego car.
I love that about Forge in the Dark because John Harper originally compartmentalized Powered by the Apocalypse and Playing to Find Out and turned it into Forged in the Dark. I don't want to speak for him. I'm sure there were other things involved. But I still remember when Blades in the Dark was called Powered by the Apocalypse and it was still a PPT game. It's just modularized. We're definitely in the stage where lots of designers are being brave about what they can do with those pieces. And now we're going to move on to our next segment called Giving Me Life. For this segment, we ask everyone to talk about something they're really digging right now and why. Mint, what is giving you life right now?
Oh gosh. Okay.
Okay, I just want to explain for people back home who cannot see Mint. She like picked up her mic, really get into this.
Do you have a complicated relationship with the American evangelical church? Do you enjoy characters that are absolutely the worst people ever, but you want them to succeed? Do you enjoy freak for freak couples? You might like the Righteous Gemstones. This is a TV show about megachurch televangelists, but it's written kind of like a mafia comedy. So it's by Danny McBride, same guy who did Vice Principals and Eastbound and Down. And it has a McBride's classic comedic patter. It carries forward his continuous examination of toxic masculinity and how it makes men do the most insane, ridiculous things. It's been on my mind because I recently discovered it and it's currently airing its fourth season and we're 2 episodes away from the end. It's such a smart show. It treats its audience with so much respect. It does not hold your hand in any way. It expects you to pick up the hints and the clues that they put down, and it still manages to completely surprise you in some of the best ways. You can tell that the people who wrote this show really understand what it's like to grow up in a completely culturally Christian environment. They know intrinsically what it is like to spend so much of your time in and around church. It doesn't lambast religion. It's not making fun of religion. It's making fun of the people who profit off of it, which I think is really, really smart. I'm almost done because as soon as I found out the show, I kind of binged everything. But I'm currently watching the first season again, but I'm introducing it to friends of mine. So we watch 2 episodes a week. And I am experiencing so much joy watching them see it for the first time and also picking up stuff that I didn't notice the first time around. But, it's one of those things when you rewatch it, you're rewatching it knowing what's going to happen, and it recontextualizes a lot of the scenes. I feel like Edie Patterson and Danny McBride, they demonstrate the best use of the English language since Shakespeare. Their comedic patter is amazing. It's so good. I think it's currently on HBO. If there's any way you have access to HBO shows, I'm watching it on Crave in Canada. Highly recommend The Righteous Gemstones.
And Casey, what is giving you life?
It feels maybe like a little bit of a cop-out, but I'm going to say the community. So I followed the community a long time ago. I used to listen to this podcast all the time, plus one forward, and I can draw like direct line from finding my way into indie games. Gian Shim to Possum Creek to Ray, you to this community for sure. The actual play videos are an awesome way to learn games. That's a huge resource. I love that that's part of what the community does. That was super helpful for me. More specifically, following the development of Apocalypse Keys, Ray, you mentioned the community probably in every interview you gave.
Yeah, I did.
And so I was aware, but probably too unsure or cowardly or whatever you want to call it to join. And then my home game didn't really gel with a couple of things I tried to throw at it. We played a lot of Yazebas, but I just didn't think we were going to get a whole campaign in. Similarly with Apocalypse Keys, it just wasn't necessarily like the perfect jam for the group. And so I was looking at my life and I went, man, if I'm going to play these games, I think there's only one place I know to go. I joined the community a few years ago based on that and have been running Yazebas probably close to 70 sessions now. I've run and played a handful of Apocalypse Keys sessions, including playtesting my Grateful Dead themed mystery. It's been awesome to be here, to get to play games. People have been super generous and kind, and my schedule's kind of gone crazy and I'm not having the most time. People are still around and willing to work with what you have and come play when there's an opportunity. And like I say, those pizza parties were kind of awesome. There's a handful of pretty regular players in those games that I haven't seen in a little while because it's just the sporadic nature of how I've been gaming. And it was awesome to catch those folks and see those people. And that's just kind of the stuff that comes out of the community. I'm super grateful for and have been since years and years and years of sitting in a factory, building wire assemblies, listening to the podcasts and the actual plays, especially like peak pandemic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Things have continued to be dark, but there was a lot of light in the darkness from this community even before I joined it. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that. Giving me life, Ray, giving me life.
It's true. Oh, man. Open Hearth got me through some of the toughest parts of this pandemic, for sure.
I sometimes text my friends about the ongoings, and I definitely have texted a friend of mine more than once, like, I'm in a game with Ray fucking Najati, or, oh, I'm playing in this game that's being run by the person who wrote the game. Like, I don't know, there's all kinds of fantastic, cool things that I get to run into here. And
This is how I talk to my friends on the daily. Of like, I can't believe that Rae Najati knows who I am.
Oh, you guys.
big time. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so bright red right now. Thank you. Thank you both. I'm so grateful how great TTRPGs are about building communities. So, and thank you both. You both are great community builders. So that really means a lot to me. So, what is giving me life? I've been so obsessed with this video game, fairly recent, just came out, called South of Midnight. It is a game that takes place in the deep South. And what's really cool is, among people who actually live there or grew up there, they say the video game is really, really authentic. Like, it really feels like a love letter to the bayou. And the gameplay, the combat, not the sharpest, but everything else, it looks so stunning. It looks so beautiful. The folklore is amazing. The message of healing community, and healing the past in order to move forward through the present to the future. It's such good stuff. The one thing I really want to bring up, that I really want to encourage people to play, is that one of the best music composers for video games worked on South of Midnight. And he has this cool thing where, as you play through each chapter slash stage, you get bits and pieces of a song that comes in. Sometimes it's children singing it. Sometimes you get bits and pieces. And then there'll be like a crescendo moment. Sometimes it's a boss fight. Sometimes it's this chase scene. Sometimes it is a moment of exploration. But there is a crescendo moment where the song fully comes together and it feels like a musical. And the songs are so good because they talk about the hurt and pain and the trauma that the main character is in the middle of healing through her abilities as a weaver. It's so emotional. It's so good. My partner and I, Matthew, we've been like playing the music constantly, and we don't spoil ourselves. We wait till we get to the chapter, hear the song, and then play it. It's so amazing. I cannot express, because the music is jazzy, folk. The boss fight was so hard because I was like, I'm distracted by how good this music is. Please, I cannot aim and remember the difference between right and left trigger when I have tears streaming down my face. It's a great game, giving me so much life. I can't wait to replay it, to enjoy it even more, because I know what songs are coming up, so it's even cooler. Man, the whole time I was playing South of Midnight, I was like, I need a TTRPG that lets me participate in folklore of the Deep South. I'm so sad. Maybe it exists. I just have to find it.
I'm sorry, are you wondering if there's a TTRPG for that?
I forgot who I was on the call with. I'm going to send that official ask on Tumblr.
Give me 2 to 6 hours.
All right, listeners, that's our show. Thank you so much for being part of it. And before we get into the closing, our dear guests, Mint and Casey, where can we find you?
You can find me mint-rabbit on itch.io. You can find me at there's a TTRPG for that.tumblr.com. And recently, I also joined Blue Sky, so I'm mint-rabbit at Blue Sky.
I highly recommend everyone check out there's a TTRPG for that.tumblr.com. She can talk about games all day long. Like, she has an encyclopedic mind. It's amazing. Casey, where can we find you on the internet?
Probably just the Open Hearth Discord. If you want to play some Yazebas, let me know. I have an ongoing list. If I've promised you a session, I remember.
Yeah, come join us on the Discord server, everybody. The Open Hearth podcast is a production of the Open Hearth Gaming Community. We have an online gaming calendar where folks can sign up for our sessions. If you've enjoyed this show, consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/openhearthgaming.com. We have a Discord. We are on Blue Sky, Tumblr, and Mastodon Dice.camp. You can find out more about all of that at openhearthgaming.com. Please consider rating, subscribing, and reviewing our show. It really helps us out. So once again, Casey and Mint, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you, listeners, for being with us, spending time with us. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.